always were a brilliant performer, Zane. It's a lonely path creating something from nothing. Late nights just you and the screen. But when you finally hold the finished product, you realize every sacrifice was worth it. The spotlight hit your face, bleaching out your features until only the sharp, predatory line of your smile remained. Everyone in the grand ballroom was applauding. I just stood near the back bar, the ice in my glass perfectly still. He's about to find out what lonely really means. We met in the dust-choked quiet of our university's special collections library, bonding over a shared obsession with a forgotten sci-fi author. We spent an entire afternoon sketching spaceships on university-branded napkins, the synergy so electric it felt like a physical force. Our first project together, a small interactive comic, we finished over a single weekend fueled by cold pizza and a case of Red Bull. I remember the moment we solved the final coding problem at 3 a.m., the two of us just grinning at the screen, too tired and too wired to speak. It was pure, shared creation. The first red flag was so small I barely registered it. At a student art showcase, the credit placard for our comic listed only one name, Zane. He was so theatrically apologetic, blaming exhaustion, promising it would never happen again. I believed him. It was easier than confronting the tiny cold knot of doubt in my gut. Our golden period lasted nearly 3 years. We called our partnership Chimera, a fusion of my design and his charisma. We landed a major contract with Sterling Corp, a project worth over $100,000 to build a revolutionary new user interface. For the first few months, it was perfect. Late-night Zoom calls brainstorming, a shared Dropbox folder humming with activity. We rented a small studio space in a converted warehouse downtown, but slowly, the balance shifted. I was pulling 70-hour weeks buried in code and vector files, while Zane was handling the client or building our brand. His lunches got longer, his contributions vaguer. When I asked to see the client correspondence, he'd wave me off, saying he didn't want to distract me from the real work. I rationalized it all. We were playing to our strengths. I was the architect, he was the ambassador. And he used my personal AMX for a $6,000 software license, promising the client reimbursement was in process. The reimbursement never came. The discovery was an accident, a digital loose thread. An automated email from DocuSign appeared in my inbox one Tuesday morning. Your document, Sterling Corp Project Chimera Final Agreement, has been signed. I had never seen that document. I clicked the link. It was a 40-page contract, and in the space for the vendor there was a single entity, Zane Webb, LLC. My blood went cold. I spent the next 2 weeks in a state of controlled fury, a private investigator in my own life. I hired a digital forensics expert named Valerie, a woman with a voice as calm and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. She told me what to look for. I dug through old hard drives, sifted through terabytes of cloud backups, and learned to read metadata like a second language. The betrayal was wider and deeper than I could have imagined. Zane had registered his solo LLC 6 weeks earlier. He had been systematically migrating our final, polished assets to a private server, then deleting the originals from our shared folders, counting on my focus to miss the digital sleight of hand. This wasn't just about credit, it was grand larceny disguised as partnership. The breaking point came in a sterile, glass-walled boardroom on the 34th floor of the Sterling Tower. The client executives, a row of impeccably tailored suits, sat on one side of a massive oak table. Zane had called the meeting, telling me it was our final joint presentation. When I walked in, he was already mid-flow, my designs projected in brilliant color on a screen behind him. He paused, smiled a warm, patronizing smile, and gestured to me. I'm so grateful for his help, he said to the room. He's a talented junior contractor I hired for some early-stage mock-ups, but from here on out, Sterling will be dealing directly with me, the project lead and sole creator. It's just cleaner that way. The executives nodded, their faces impassive. In that silent, air-conditioned room, something inside me didn't break, it hardened. It turned to steel. My entire plan began in the space between one heartbeat and the next, sparked by a tiny detail on the screen. He was showcasing a custom color palette, one I had spent a week perfecting. I had named it Kaido Blue, after a character from an old anime we both loved. The hexadecimal code, 2A4D69, was burned into my memory. It was my digital fingerprint, and he had just presented it as his own. The first call I made was to Valerie. Her retainer was $8,500. This is clean, she said after reviewing my initial findings. The digital trail is a highway. For the next 3 weeks we worked in secret. My apartment became a war room, walls covered in timelines and printouts of server logs. The cost was immense, not just financially, but emotionally. Slept in 4-hour shifts, my dreams filled with lines of code and Zane's smiling face. One night I almost cracked. A text from him popped up on my phone. Hey, heard you were feeling down after the meeting. Don't worry, I'm making sure you get a nice bonus for all your hard work. thinking 5K, all good. It was a pittance, an insult wrapped in generosity. My thumbs hovered over the screen, ready to unleash a torrent of rage. Valerie's voice echoed in my head. Radio silence. Let him think he's won. I put the phone down. Our evidence was a fortress. We had 1,482 timestamped Git commits with my unique developer key. We had the complete server history from Dropbox showing my account was the source of 95% of the final assets. We had emails where I detailed architectural decisions, with Zane replying, "Sounds perfect, run with it." Valerie even recovered a fragment of a recorded Zoom call where Zane praised my genius framework. But the killer proof, the beautifully ironic coincidence, was Sterling Corp itself. I had done contract work for their security division 2 years prior and knew they used a proprietary fraud detection algorithm. I knew exactly how to package our evidence, the IP address logs, the conflicting metadata, the timeline of his LLC registration, to trigger every single red flag in their system. The final piece was the trap. Valerie drafted a devastating cease and desist letter, but we didn't send it. We waited. Digital Innovators Gala was in a month, and Project Chimera was nominated for the top prize. Zane would be there, center stage. He would walk willingly into the light. The night of the gala was a blur of black ties and champagne. When they announced Project Chimera as the winner for groundbreaking UI design, Zane's acceptance speech was a masterpiece of self-aggrandizing fiction. As he walked off the stage, basking in the applause, I intercepted him near the bar. "That was a very moving speech you just gave, Zane." He looked at me, his eyes bright with triumph. "Thanks," he said, dismissive, already turning away. I didn't raise my voice, I just said. Sterling Corp's legal department seemed moved too. He froze. His bravado curdled into confusion, then into a flicker of panic. I held up my phone. On the screen was a forwarded email sent 5 minutes ago from Valerie to Sterling's general counsel. The subject line, urgent, IP fraud claim regarding Project Chimera. Below that was a link to a secure data room containing our entire case. "They're probably looking at the Git commits right now," I said softly, "or maybe the server logs. My favorite is the metadata on the Kaido blue color swatch. Hex code 2A4D69. Remember, the color drained from his face. He started to stammer something about a misunderstanding about how we could work this out. I let him sputter for a moment before I cut him off. "There is no misunderstanding. You just gave your farewell performance." The fallout was swift and silent, a corporate execution. Sterling Corp froze Zane's final $75,000 payment and rescinded the award the next morning, citing a partnership dispute. The arbitration was a formality. Faced with irrefutable data, Zane signed everything: a full confession, a transfer of all intellectual property, and a non-disclosure agreement so restrictive he could never work in this industry again. The chaos was distant. I turned off my phone for 72 hours. When I turned it back on, my inbox contained a single new message. It was a new contract from Sterling Corp, addressed to me as the sole creator of the project. 6 months later, I saw Zane. I was leaving my new loft, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and he was across the street. He was wearing a faded polo shirt with a community college logo, the same one where we met. He was hunched over, untangling a mess of Ethernet cables spilling from a utility cart. He looked gray, tired, and utterly anonymous. I felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, just quiet. My new life is built on my own work. The peace I feel isn't from winning, it's from no longer needing anyone else's name next to mine. Last week I gave a small talk at a design conference. Someone in the audience asked me about the solitary nature of creative work. I smiled. It can be a lonely path, creating something from nothing. But it's a lot less lonely when you learn to trust yourself. The spotlight felt warm, and for the first time it was all mine.